you will have is 30 million pesos is one Bitcoin.
30
right now.
million. So,
30 million.
and they're at 500 million Lebanese pounds for Bitcoin there, but I think it's 10 times. So in the same way, it's 3x. Right. Hello, everyone. I'm here with a very new acquaintance. Here we had a mutual friend that put us in contact. Manu here is from Argentina, right? Where in Argentina are you? Or you may not want to say, but
Well, I'm in the suburbs of the capital, so it's in the west. I call it the far west because I live in one of the most violent and dangerous neighborhoods in Argentina, which is called Moreno. People who knows Argentina, well, Moreno is one of the most dangerous neighborhoods.
Wow. Well, yeah, I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you're safe for now.
Yes, I'm safe. I live in a safe, small neighborhood. It's like a private. It's very common in Argentina. You have these private neighborhoods which are quite safe, but around it is a lot of people. Well, very poor people, and quite well drugs and yes, it's quite difficult around where I live.
Yeah, that's too bad. Here in the States, it's similar. You have good parts of a city and not as good parts of a city.
Yeah.
So whether you want to talk about your local community or Argentina as a whole, I'd be interested in people listening. So I'm sure be interested in hearing about your story living in Argentina. You know, a lot of us Bitcoin fans, inflation, students of inflation, historical examples of inflation. You know, we read a lot about these, 50%, 80%, 100% examples of inflation. And Argentina obviously is one of the most infamous examples of inflation today in the world, along with Turkey and a few others. And Argentina is a pretty large country. So anyway, here's a visual representation for folks. Here in the United States, Bitcoin is well below 50% of its all-time highs, but in Argentina, Bitcoin's at all-time highs. Everything else is at all-time highs as the peso falls. So I'd love to hear your story of your time in Argentina, how long you've been there, and in what ways you've seen changes in the last 3, 5, 10, 20 years with all these resets of your currency.
Well, first, just for you to know, I think, let me reconfirm just in case. I will share afterwards the link, or you can look for it. CoinMonitor, because the Google price is in official rate.
Yeah,
it's wrong.
Official rate.
And the Google rate is wrong. It doesn't exist. It's like the official rate. And in Argentina, we have like 22. We never know how many different actually Argentine prices has. It has the official, the tourist one, the agro one, the Qatar one for the people who want to go to see a football match for a World Cup. So I think that is nearly the half what it's worth the peso. So yes, it's an interesting country. It's a very beautiful country. It's a very big country. We descend mainly from Italians, and Spain, and well, some Germans and a lot of Europeans, but also from indigenous. Yes, yes. My history. I remember living in hyperinflation when I was young, and when I was 15 years old, I live in hyperinflation, and now we are living nearly in hyperinflation. So, and right now the inflation is like 10 to 20% per month. It's getting completely out of control. We have the evaluation of up to 25% in these last months. Sometimes in 1 week, the peso devaluated 20%. So it's like, remember the ones who are all like me, we have it like very present that we have lived all this. yes, is getting completely out of control. And normally, when you have this in the past, we are expecting a lot of violence to come. Right now, the government is Peronist, so it's populist. So normally during the Peronist governments, they have a good they are populist, so they manage the people is confused, I would say, because they provide a lot of plans, money, and they print it and they provide more money, and they lie a lot. So it's very, very, very difficult. But what you see when you live here is that the situation, the economic and social situation, is getting worse, 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 worse. A lot of Argentines now are emigrating. A lot already emigrated. I think after maybe Venezuela, I think right now maybe the second most, the second country who is like sending people to live outside of Latin America is Argentina. I have friends and family living all over the world. Especially people who are well educated, but that maybe is the people that can contribute more to the economic development here. So it's tough, and your kids normally want to go to live abroad. My kid doesn't want to live here, and they don't want to study here. They want to study outside, and if they any young person who is bright will try to emigrate. Regarding Bitcoin, that I understand that you are a Bitcoiner, is like a safe haven. So the reality is most people in Argentina is not very wealthy. Right now it's a poor country, I would say. Of course, it was a very rich country like 100 years ago, but right now the percentage of population that is wealthy is small. Still, it is a well-educated country if you compare it with most countries in Latin America. Maybe I live in Chile and in Colombia. Chile and Colombia population is very well educated. In Venezuela, they had a very good educated people, but you know, this last 20 years was like a disaster. So even if the people who is more financially educated, which is few, among those, some are into Bitcoin, but not too many. Again, most people in Argentina would go to dollars, and they just will save in dollars under the mattress. We are not allowed to have US dollar bank accounts, or you can get a bank account, but you cannot buy more than $200, and it depends. For example, if you are you are living in a social plan, if you are poor and you live from the state, you cannot buy dollars in the bank because the state will not give you the money for your support. So there is a lot of restriction to buy dollars, but most people try to buy it in the what we call the black market, the cuevas. So people try to save in dollars, which actually, you know, I know that gets a lot of regulation. But among so many restrictions, a lot of people trying to send money abroad or trying to do, yes, mainly I think trying to move money outside or inside the country, discovered Bitcoin, especially in the early days in 2000, because we have all these restriction in capital controls since ever, since these last 20 years. So since Bitcoin been invented, we live like in a good environment and a good use case for using Bitcoin. So a lot of people in Argentine learn about Bitcoin in really early. I would say in proportion, because I went all over the world in this land, steps Asia and Africa. I've been in Europe and America a lot, and Central America, and I would say, and I talk with a lot of people from different countries. In proportion, I would say that I think there is not so much statistics, but I think here we have a very strong and big Bitcoiner community. I would say right now, especially after this bear market, after a bear market, maximalist rise more. So is still a big crypto, I would say, because a lot of people don't understand and they discover crypto and they go, oh, this is like the new star, and well, they discover that it's Bitcoin, not crypto. But so it's a very strong Bitcoiners community. Also a big crypto community. Also, the other thing that is important in proportion, I would say, Argentina, especially the Buenos Aires, is like a big software development hub in Latin America. So we have many nerds, and among the nerds, Bitcoin is quite popular. It's like if you are a software engineer and you don't like Bitcoin, it's because you did not do your homework. So yes, I would say maybe Venezuela, Argentina, and Zimbabwe are like and maybe Lebanon right now, and Iran and Cuba are like the best environment on which you have a really strong case to use Bitcoin. I would say if you live in the States or if you live in Europe, I think most probably you have other problems. Yes, saving is important, but you can access the capital market, you can save in stocks. Of course, saving in US dollars is not the best, but in general, there is not many basic financial problems, a financial freedom problem. Here is like you have so much oppression on the financial side, and so many real tangible needs to use this technology. As I mentioned, one thing is just for moving money, but also, as I mentioned, now most people use dollars as saving. So a lot of Argentines, the same in Venezuela, use stablecoins. So the usage of stablecoins is very popular. I would say the retail usage. Of course, the main usage of stablecoins is trading and DeFi and all that. But if you go to we call it caves in Argentina, una cueva is the illegal shop to buy and to sell dollars. Right now, I would say that most cuevas buy and sell stablecoins. Before it was only dollars cash. You know that Argentina is the country in the world that per person we have the most dollars in the world. So even being a poor country, we save a lot in. It's like I think the last figure was like 300,000 millions were in US dollars were in possession of Argentines, but bills is like we use bills because we cannot use a bank account. We have a 150 devaluation, annual devaluation. So most people is not aware of Bitcoin, and they try again to save in dollars. A good substitute for moving dollars easily under the radar is stablecoin. So a lot of people use it.
Yeah, it's amazing to hear it from you because I read about this all the time and I talk to others about this, but hearing it from you, makes it very real that you lived through this. This is you were talking about when you were younger, when you were a teenager, and I think it's a lot of things that are hard for us Americans, Europeans to hear and to accept is that, all the things you said, that dollars is the preferred BDF, not your local currency, not your pesos, that it's illegal to use the dollars or save in the dollars wherever. You have to go out of your way to do that, right? Like who would think the US dollar would be illegal, let alone in a, major nation like Argentina. And then what you're saying about the official versus unofficial rates, that's something that I often forget to consider, right? That's what you were starting out talking about how Bitcoin in terms of the peso is what, 12 million? So 12 million
I think the real
pesos.
rate, one Bitcoin now, it's like it's Coin Monitor Argentina is coinmonitor.info. You will have 30 million pesos is one Bitcoin.
30 million. So
30 million. Yes,
that's crazy.
Like 3 times what you are seeing in Google.
Three times the official rate.
Yes, nearly
the Google
3
rate.
times. I will share the link. Let me see.
It's the same thing in Lebanon too. You mentioned Lebanon is another one of the modern examples like you guys, and they're at 500 million Lebanese pounds for Bitcoin there, but I think it's 10 times. So in the same way it's 3x for you guys, I think for them it's 10x. I might be wrong with that, and it's part of the problem that it's hard to perceive. But it reminds me, I don't know if you saw this meme back earlier in 2023.
Yeah.
This made quite the rounds, and people thought it was very controversial, fear mongering, and paranoia and all that stuff. And then of course this happened right after that in Lebanon, and obviously I don't hope this for your sake and your family's sake, but Argentina, it's more or less to a lesser degree, it's already happening, and perhaps it gets even worse, where overnight it's just like that. It's just parabolic. And so anyway, all that I think it's so critical for us Americans and Canadians and Europeans and Australians to, the, let's say, West, to remember that the only difference between you on this one end of the Zoom call and me on this other end of the Zoom call is just where we are geographically. You happen to be in a country that has a lower political ability to create these numbers, and so it's like a balloon that's just deflating faster and faster. And here in the States, we're very fortunate to be living where we have a strong army and a strong government and strong political will that can maintain our leaking balloon, so it leaks a little slower, right? So yeah, anyway, fascinating.
Yes, seeing from abroad and being there many times, I see a lot of problems that we have that, I'm like nearly 50 years old, I'm 49. And I have living with populist governments my whole life. And I see most of the problems that we Argentina has emerging in United States and emerging in Europe also. Socialism is like, from my view, is like a cancer, and it starts and it doesn't stop. You had for nearly 1 century, you have a great currency, which was the dollar. They started, first Roosevelt in the 30s, confiscated the gold to all your citizens, and then devaluated a lot your currency, And then Nixon started what we started like 100 years ago, but this is like cocaine. once politicians start to test inflation, they are not going to stop. So I don't see inflation in Europe or in United States well controlled. You have your army is being financed mostly by the adoption of the dollar by the world. So if we Argentines, as I told you, learns that dollar is not a good currency at all, most people slowly will start to use other money, most probably gold or most probably Bitcoin, I think, in the long term. So if most people in the world start to use some money like Bitcoin, when you start inflating the dollar and you have the inflation that you have in United States, plus you are inflating, my mother is supporting with her saving US dollar, she is supporting the inflation of US dollar for fighting a war in Ukraine or whatever that the US government thinks is a good thing. But if my mother learns about Bitcoin, maybe she's not going to learn. But I already learned about Bitcoin, and my kids know very well about Bitcoin, and my wife and my friend, a lot of my friends understand after many years of me talking about Bitcoin. So we are learning. Once a lot of Argentines, and a lot of Venezuelan, a lot of Lebanese, a lot of Zimbabweans learn about Bitcoin, we will start using Bitcoin as reserve asset instead of using US dollar. And at that moment, for US, it will be very difficult to finance your deficit, that you have a huge deficit, just printing money, because only you, the Americans, will suffer that inflation. It's not going to be shared all around the world. So at that moment, I think the power that US right now has is going to decline a lot. And I really don't know if most American and politicians are really thinking strategically and thinking about this huge risk to the wealth of your nation, which is amazing. I've been in the United States many times, and it's many things that I like about America, but I think you are like in a very comfortable zone, and you don't maybe realize, most people, I think that most people is not aware of the huge risk that you have to become like, Argentina was a very wealthy country, and we mess a lot with the money. And money is like in the core of a nation. It's in the middle of a society. If you don't have some money, all the business activities start to perform wrongly.
I'm glad that you're taking the time to learn about Bitcoin, learn about Bitcoin's potential future value, both in terms of political currency units and on society as a whole. And I'm really glad that you're taking the effort to study and educate yourself about Bitcoin. However, I must make this message incredibly clear. If you are learning about Bitcoin, you must begin also learning about self-custody and taking possession of your own keys. This is really, really important. You can watch as many YouTube videos as you want, talking about how Bitcoin is going to skyrocket in fiat price and how the number is going to go up. You can talk about that all you want. You can daydream about this kind of vertical spike action for Bitcoin. You can daydream about this all you want. But my encouragement to you is that this is not a meme. This is not something to be taken lightly. We can think that this is a good thing, and it is a good thing ultimately for Bitcoin's long-term adoption, but this is real. Okay, this really happens in countries. It may not happen in your country for some time. It may happen in a stair-step fashion, but this is not a meme. This is not a joke. And so, therefore, you need to take self-custody really, really seriously, okay? I work full-time in self-custody solutions for people. I help people set up their multi-sig vaults. I help people set up their estate plans. I help people with a collaborative custody partnership and collaborative custody models, okay? This is a chart of the amount of interest we have at the Bitcoin Advisor, the company I work at, okay? This is not
me personally, this is the whole company. We've been in business 7 years. Not a single client of ours has ever lost a single sat. Okay. And we have a good number of clients, and this is our demand. My point in showing you this chart, my point in showing you this message right now is that it is increasingly urgent, increasingly important that you begin taking self-custody very seriously. I'm telling you, I'm on the inside of this all day, every day, 6 days a week, and demand for self-custody is skyrocketing. Okay. The kinds of clients we have, the number of clients we have, the conviction in the clients we have, it is only going up. Okay. And people are booking meetings with me weeks, okay, in advance. In some cases, over a month in advance. And we are in bear market. Okay. This chart right here is from October 2023. Okay. Bear, like incredible low interest globally in Bitcoin. And our demand is still skyrocketing. It's still spiking. And my encouragement is that if we have a bull run, if we have parabolic spikes such as this, where Bitcoin goes rapidly upwards in terms of price, if we have these periods of time, okay, transaction fees are going to spike. Okay, exchanges are going to halt withdrawals. Okay, people are going to panic. They're going to smash by any price. Okay, it's going to be increasingly difficult to have any time with people to help you in your self-custody setups. So first and foremost, whatever you do, whether you work with me at the Bitcoin Advisor, whether you go somewhere else, whether you figure it out on your own, whatever the case, please start figuring out self-custody. Hot wallets, cold wallets, cold wallets, single sig, multi-sig, whatever you do, just start figuring it out now, because I'm increasingly alarmed by the number of Bitcoiners that do not have self-custody. So please, if you have any Bitcoin self-custody, but especially if you have a large amount of Bitcoin in self-custody, please start taking this stuff seriously, because it's only going to be increasingly important in the future. And so, if you like to work with me, if you like to hear my opinions, perspectives, and ideas on this topic, you can find me at the Bitcoin Advisor. This is precisely why I work at the Bitcoin Advisor, because I believe this is such an important topic here. Okay. You can find me there. You can have expert guidance on how to self-custody Bitcoin, to buy, secure, and store it properly for the long term. We can have tailored strategies for you, what your long-term vision is, both for yourself, your own individual future, your retirement, and for your future generations as well. Again, multi-sig vaults, estate plans, all these things for you. Okay. You can just book a free meeting with me here, and the link down below in the description. Again, the first consultation is completely free, where we can talk about your priorities and see if there's a value add both for you and for the Bitcoin Advisor as well. And again, our goal is to help you have generational wealth for you and your loved ones and your children without losing sleep. Okay. And that's why not only do you get a free initial consultation, but you have dozens and dozens of pages of education about multi-sig, self-custody, how to store your Bitcoin properly, things to avoid, things to pursue. Okay. Again, dozens and dozens of pages of free education for you to be learning about this increasingly important, increasingly urgent topic. Okay. And then you can learn further about the Bitcoin Advisor, and why we provide much more value for half the cost of our competitors. You can learn about all this and more in that link in the description, where you can book a free consultation with me at the Bitcoin Advisor. So again, whatever you do, whether you work with me at the Bitcoin Advisor or you try to figure out on your own, please just start taking action now. Because in a couple of years, higher and higher net worth people are going to be entering the space and demanding self-custody. Okay, more and more companies, more and more charities, more and more pension funds, more and more churches, all these things, all these groups of people, all these entities are going to be coming into Bitcoin very quickly, and they'll be willing to pay the transaction fees. They'll be willing to pay whatever fiat price and get for their sats. They'll be willing to do the self-custody as fast as possible. And so my encouragement to you, again, I'm glad you're enjoying these videos. I really appreciate you subscribing and commenting and being a part of these videos and increasing your Bitcoin education. But please, please, please do not stop at the end of this video. Immediately after you watch the end of this video, please start taking your self-custody seriously, whether that's with me at the Bitcoin Advisor, again, link in the description, or it's on your own. Whatever the case, please just do it. Thank you.
As in America, we hear this all the time from our American finance people that go on podcasts to talk about it. But, whenever I hear, I was talking just a couple days ago with someone that lived through Yugoslavia in the, 80s, 90s, whatever, during their hyperinflation, right? And it's like hearing these stories from people that lived doing these things, whether it's the past, like Yugoslavia, or Hungary in '56. I talked to a lady that lived through that. I talked to other people that lived through hyperinflations of the past. And then people like you, I have friends in Colombia, friends in Turkey, friends in Venezuela, tell me these same stories. So it's always fascinating to hear it. I think you make a great point about how money is the center of all these second order effects, and that Americans fail to realize that what happens is that we export this inflation, we export the numbers to the rest of the world. We use our military to enforce that. And when people like you, literally you, begin to reject that peacefully and go into a different form of savings, and you're no longer accepting America's numbers, America's currency units, then all of a sudden it's like this negative feedback loop. In the same way, it's like a positive feedback loop that we put more money, we build a bigger military. The bigger military we build, the more we enforce the money in our system. It's like a positive feedback loop on the up, and then it's like on the downside. You have less money to put into the military. Less people are willing to serve in the military. As less people willing to serve, you have less money. The military shrinks. As it shrinks, more people are like, oh, I don't want only dollars, or I don't want dollars at all, or whatever. And so it's like this negative feedback loop. In the same way, it's a positive loop up. And I think you're right. I think Americans are in for a rude awakening, and perhaps Europeans and the rest of the world too. And I think perhaps the one exception, I'd like to hear your thoughts on this. I think the one exception is what happens to the countries that figure this out and begin printing money, not for their military, but begin printing money to get their Bitcoin allocation, right? Like, I fully agree with you. What if the US or Germany or Japan or wherever has this continued currency decline? But I think of Michael Saylor, he weakened his stock as much as he could. He sold as much as he could. He dumped as much as he could to put Bitcoin on his treasury, which ironically made his stock stronger. And so I often think, what happens, or even Argentina's example, what happens if, or when a country figures that out and they're like, we should print as much political money as we can. We should print as much currency as we can to then buy as much Bitcoin as we can, back our currency with this. So even though we're diluting our currency, because we're buying so much more Bitcoin than everyone else, our currency is actually doing better than everything else. So do you think about that at all? Like, what happens when this inflation transition is going from...
I really think about that. I thought a lot about that, and I think at the moment when US starts to buy Bitcoin as a reserve asset for their dollars, is the moment where the dollar is going to be worthless. Because if people see that US government starting to buy Bitcoin to back his money, well, just instead of using dollars, just saving Bitcoin, because it's better money. So it's going to be like a clear sign that US has lost this war against much superior money. I don't know if the US government is buying, maybe it is buying, or maybe it's going to try to get the money as Roosevelt did. Most probably that's why I tell people, be careful if you use WBTC, because that is from a US corporation. So Bitcoin is most probably the US military is going to seize all that completely centralized solutions. Most probably is going to seize, if they think that is important for strategic security, they're going to go to MicroStrategy and say to Microsoft, give me that Bitcoins, I will give you US money, as Roosevelt did. What did Roosevelt 100 years ago? They did that. You did that already.
We already done it.
For US, and they thought, well, give me all your dollars. And what is going to do Michael Saylor? Michael Saylor is going to hand out the private keys, because if not, he's going to jail. That's the end of the story. So, but at that moment, all people in the world are going to have a clear sign, because information 100 years ago was not like information is now. So this time, I don't think that the US government is going to be able to cheat to all the world and say, no, trust on me, I'm going to save to make the dollar great and back my dollar with gold, with digital gold, which is, no, bullshit. I'm as an Argentine, I'm not going to use the US dollar, because I know how this story ends. I already see. You know, the thing is, the US government for any Bitcoiner living abroad is like the same shit like Argentine government, but at different speed. You know, Argentine is like going full speed. We know that we cannot trust. Actually, I'm having a discussion today and these weeks. There is a lot of some very clever people, some Bitcoiners that are saying, well, no, the Argentine central bank should buy Bitcoin as a reserve asset. I say, no, because now the Argentine central bank doesn't have any reserve. As the US, US don't have much reserves. It's just print money, but we don't trust, nobody trusts on the peso. And in the case of US government, people still trust. I don't know why, but we trust that your money is good. So there's only two ways to buy Bitcoin. One is taxing. So if you have a fiscal deficit, you need to tax the people. So in Argentina, we have a fiscal tax revenue. People cannot pay more taxes. There's no way to tax more to the people because we already pay ridiculous. So the other way is printing money. What happens when you print more money to buy stuff? You have more inflation. And if you print a lot of money, you have hyperinflation. So what is going to happen in US? The only way for US to buy Bitcoin is to tax your people or to print more money. It's the same all over the world. It doesn't make sense. If you are a good government and you have a surplus of money, just reduce taxes.
Why do that when you could just spend it?
But it's
yeah, it's hard.
You have read Hayek, maybe the Fatal Conceit.
I'm sorry?
The Fatal Conceit. I don't know, maybe I'm not pronouncing well.
The
Arrogancia,
yeah,
Fatal Conceit.
Yeah.
Is the main problem of the world, I think, is still is socialism. Yes.
The idea that we can have something for free from the future today with no cost to the future or to the present, for that matter.
Yeah, I think the main idea is that the government is good, that the big government is that having a good state is good for the population in general. And at least in what I think is that the state is bad. It's necessary, but it's bad. So the smaller that it can be, the better. This nation states has one very important factor of power, which was currency. Currency is one of the main sources of power of each nation state. Because just printing money, as the US have done and Europe is doing, United Kingdom in the past, well, you can finance wars and deficit and all that. If you take out that power of making, not legal taxes, which is inflation, is taxes not by law, just by printing. The government needs to manage the state need to manage their finances much better. So, because if not, who is going to finance that? Debt has a limit. And actually, debt is another way of just printing money. And I think, as I mentioned before, is I'm not only not using US dollar, but I think that you should be quite, I don't know, not very intelligent to buy US bonds, because if you see the picture, for me, again, United States is doing the same that Argentina and other countries did in the past. And this addiction is not going to stop. I don't think that the following 100 years of US presidents are going to say, no, we need a smaller government, fiscal austerity, just reduce the military. No, I don't expect that from, not for China, not for Europe. It's like all these people living in governments just think about how to have more power, how to have more control. At the end, this is going to end like in the rest of the country. So maybe we are, in a way, maybe we are just living in the future. You see, maybe it's good at the end. What we are suffering is good, because I think in most beacon nations are going to come from countries like Venezuela, like Zimbabwe, because again, once you learn about beacon, you cannot unlearn it. There's no way. But what?
Well, thank you very much. I fully agree with that. When it comes to bonds, you know, it's just you're buying debt, buying a bond is buying a promise to a future. But if you keep printing money, consuming the future for the sake of the present, you're buying a bond in a future that increasingly doesn't exist. And unfortunately, I think that's what's going to happen. Just like you're saying, I think the moment this happens, the moment this kind of, you know, dramatic candle that's often memed about or joked about is that kind of thing. In the same way, you know, we're seeing this with other nations around the world, your home and other places around the world. And I think eventually it's going to happen in multiple Western nations, you know, America, Europe, elsewhere in the world. I think it's going to be a huge wake-up call. And like your excellent point about information being so much faster today, I think it's just going to speed up. And I think people are going to be caught off guard. And so I hope people enjoy hearing your story, enjoying hearing your message, and that, you know, both you and I and the many of us out there trying to pound the table about this get through, and hopefully more people hear and understand it. So thanks for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for the invitation to talk. It was really a pleasure.
Thank you.